Hello and welcome to this demonstration. My name is Cara Rosalie Olson and I am the owner of Rosalie Gwen Paperie, a fine art floral boutique. And today I have the privilege and honor of sharing the Calliograph collection with you from Archer and Olive, water-based ink. And we are going to do some amazing things and create some beautiful art. So let's jump right in and talk about our supplies. Obviously, we have our gorgeous pens over here, and you would want to have those ready along with some brushes. I will be using a variety of Princeton brush, and I like to use size 6 and 8. They're the most common and most versatile for me. And then you'll want a palette, something that you can blend and mix on, or you can use the palette that comes with your pens if you purchased one of these. So this is the Spellbind collection, and these are the acrylics. I'll be working with the watercolors today, but there is a blending palette right here for you if you do not have a glass or plastic palette. So you'll also want to have a piece of 140-pound cold pressed paper. That is my preference, and I would say nothing lighter than that, because you want the watercolor to be able to or the paper, excuse me, to withstand the watercolor. You'll also want to have a cup of water and something to blot off on. I have a linen towel here, but a paper towel will do. So that is our supply list. Let's jump right into making something beautiful together. So I should preface this video by saying that there are several ways to use these pens, which is one of the reasons why I love them, because they're so versatile. So the ways I'm going to be showing you are just personally how I enjoy using them in my process and work, but you'll obviously want to experiment and explore and just see how they best serve you. So let's go ahead and bring out our mauve pearl, and we're going to be using the Broadside. And I'm going to show you the first way I enjoy using these. We're going to make a pink Cosmo together. And the first thing I want you to do is to dip your brush into a glass of clean water. I'm going to be using a 6 brush, and make sure it's thoroughly wet. And we're going to draw our first, or excuse me, paint our first petal on the page here. And then we're going to take our pen, Broadside, and we're just going to kind of start tapping right here down at the very bottom. And then we're going to take our brush and just stroke through the paint so that it runs into the damp portion of the paper. So we're just kind of running the color along, and I love that little spotted speckle right there. It's going to really contribute to the center of the flower. So you might want to do that a couple times. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the pen and run it through the wet media to create some really beautiful detail lines. You have to make sure your page is wet enough, or else the lines won't run as you see here. And you can even do the same at the tip of the petal, and then run it back through this way for extra details. The other way that you can use these pens is by using the side to, just realized I was using the fine side. Let's use the Broadside for this one. By removing the paint from the pen and applying to a palette. And you want to make sure you have enough paint, so thoroughly cover a portion, and then using your brush, dip it into water. You can now activate this so that the water ratio is a little bit more akin to watercolor. And you can obviously apply it to a brush, and then now you can do another petal here. So obviously it's a little bit different because the paint is moving equally off of the bristles rather than the paint originating from the center here. But with watercolor, as you may know already, it's not a perfect medium, and so the imperfections are really what make it so beautiful. And then you can take your pen, would use the Broadside now. Really not a huge difference. It would probably be more so if you were actually making a lot of lines. I don't do a whole lot of that in my process, so it really works beautifully here too. And run those lines through. So it's really kind of what your preference is. I'm going to do another petal like our first one to kind of give it some variety here. So I'm wetting a portion of the page, and then I'll come down here and start at the center, working my way towards the middle, and then run those lines through. And then you can use your brush again to kind of soften those lines or accentuate them. And then I'll do another petal here. And then let's do one more here, just a little bit of the water on it. And then using the brush, or excuse me, the pen, to darken it a little bit. And you really can move into the petal as much as you like. I tend to not go dark quickly just because you can't undo dark, but using these pens gradually, little by little, you start to see like a really pretty effect. And all the petals are, you know, slightly different, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing at all. So really, it's what suits you as the artist. Okay, we're going to come back and focus on the middle of the flower. Just a small note that you can continue working with the flower even as long as it's drying. So you can see the media is doing some really pretty bleeding effects here, and you can continue using your pen, you know, to add more details after the fact. So if you wanted to take your pen and run it through, once things are a little drier, you'll get even more of that detail. All right, for our middle of our flower, we're going to be using the mustard pen. Again, I'm going to be using the Broadside, and I'm going to start again with just a little bit of water in the center here because I want it to run into the rest of my petals. And I'm just going to begin applying the pen to the page and just kind of let the water do its thing. That's what's so magical about watercolor and these pens, is it just kind of takes over. And you can even run it into the petal here. And then take your brush and guide it through. And you have a really beautiful center. You can leave some of the petals attached and some detached for just more of a loose overall effect. And then I'm actually going to use, this is all from the Jewel collections, but there's also the Tropical selection, which has some beautiful colors. The jewel tones suit my palette a little bit more accurately, but they're all beautiful. Now I'm just going to take the Broadside of the indigo and do a few more little details right here in the middle. And I'm using it while it's still wet, but you could wait till it's dry if you don't want it running. But I really like that effect. I think it looks super beautiful. And then I'm going to run a few details into the petals as well, keeping things very loose, very gestural. And then I'm going to pick up the mustard once again and just kind of blend it all together. Blue and yellow, if you aren't already familiar, will make green, and that's a beautiful sort of in-between color between the pink. And again, like I said, you can keep playing with these as you like. as it dries and as it's still wet, you can obviously reactivate the petals by putting a little bit of water down and then repeating the process. All right, let's come back with some leaves. So for the leaves, I'm going to be using moss green and olive, and I'll be using the Broadside again. I was catching a little bit of glare on my plate, so I've turned off my light for just a moment so that you can see what I'm doing accurately, and then I'll flip it back on. So again, I'm going to just run the pen along the palette. Like so that I have my two different greens. Similar in color, but this one's definitely a little bit more minty and light. And then taking two brushes now, I'll move this one and load it. And the next one through this pile. I'm going to add just a little bit of the indigo to kind of make this a little bit more different from the other pile. Now we have a darker version, and you can blend these colors obviously as much as you like. They make some really beautiful tones. Okay, so now that we have our two different colors here, we can do the same thing we did last time, which is to wetten an area. And then run our brush through. Let's flip that light back on so you can see just a little bit clearer. So continuing through here, I'm going to just wetten a little area. It's got a little bit of green on it from my brush, and then use the Broadside of the moss green. For a few more details. And then again, you can switch back and forth from brush to pen, use them interchangeably. You can even just take the pen if you like. For a few leaves or little branch ideas. And then take your brush if you like and just kind of loosely stitch it all together. And then let's go ahead and do one big leaf down here using the blended pile from right here. That was the indigo and the olive. So you can see how versatile these pens are. And if you are more comfortable with the brush, then you can use the pens to mix and blend and then put on the page. Or if the pen makes you feel comfortable, then you obviously can just apply directly to the paper. And I'm going to use the indigo one more time, just a few more details. My brush, just to blend it all together. And then lastly, let's put a stem on it. We can add a few more. And then run the brushes through as well. Or excuse me, the pens. Just keeping things very loose. And then let's pull you out so you can see the whole thing together. So there you have it, our beautiful Cosmo using the Calliograph water-based inks. They're so beautiful. I hope you enjoy using them, and if you do, would love for you to tag Archer and Olive and myself so we can see your creations. Thank you so much for joining me today.